when he was doing the stuff to do with the Hidden King, he was
Yeah.
using Mark Windows as a cameraman. They did some quite good filming all around London. Mark's very good at that type of stuff, by the way, Mark Windows, right? And that's how I got to know him, because he wanted to interview Greg and speak to him when he went, and they both went to this talk that Jim Fetzer did in Friends, which is near Euston Station in London. Yeah.
Okay.
Near King's Cross and Euston Station. But anyway, and nobody turned up because Belinda Mackenzie had said that she would sort out getting all the people to go, and it was basically empty. It was basically the people at the camp, the people talking, and that was it. Anyway, so it was basically massively underattended. It was basically had 0 attendance. So then I also met Jim Fetzer, and I also that guy Kevin Barrett, who he knocks about with. Now those two are clearly co-intels as well. And I don't really know why Jim Fetzer even lets Greg on his show, but he let him on his show. And again, whenever he goes on Jim Fetzer's show, it's like literally he just lets rip with all sorts of nonsense.
Yeah,
you know?
and I've seen some of his videos, and sort of as Greg finishes saying something that's absolutely ridiculous, Jim Fetzer just kind of goes, he won't really respond to it. He'll just be like, that's interesting, and then they'll move on to Greg's next ridiculous claim. But that's what I found. Anyway,
well, you see, the thing with Jim Fetzer is other people say, well, I don't think he's a counterintelligence operative, because every time I call him and he's out and about, he can talk. Often he's like in McDonald's with his grandchildren or something. He's not living the high life. And it's like, well, most people in the intelligence services aren't living the high life.
Yeah, no, agreed. Did Greg ever mention the Christchurch massacre to you?
No, I think that would have been after, when I was dealing with him, wouldn't it? He would have talked about the Tasmanian one, which would have been before he came. He would have mentioned about that. I mean, the thing with Greg, you've got to remember his basic outline, before he gets into stupid stuff, he does understand how everything fits together on a kind of a lot higher than the average person. So he does understand that all those things are all set up. He knows all that. He just doesn't really get involved with that. He's way past that. But then he starts coming out with all sorts of stupid stuff. So don't think that he jumps from believing everything on TV and then just adding this complete and utter mental stuff. He doesn't. He actually does know how things operate. He does know.
Yeah.
He just chooses now to come out with all this absolute nonsense and add all that to it. So, like, you've got his first book, Are You My Father? The Family Courts and Other Experiments. That book, I didn't read it all because I think someone borrowed it and didn't give it back. But I read the bits of it I read were, it was quite good, really quite good. But that's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So he lived with you for 4 months, you say? Around about
4 months, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so when you went to go and see John Ainsworth Davis, that was that near the end of those 4 months then? I mean, because you guys kind of fell out.
No. Sorry, that was after that time. That was maybe like a year later when he wasn't even on the
so
team.
You met up with him again?
And then he came back again, yeah.
Okay. So had he, in between you doing that, had he gone to Portugal to do the whole Francisco Manuel thing and live in the cave, or
yeah, but you see, this is where he really fucked up, because when he went back to Portugal then, it was like he didn't actually achieve anything. All he's got is these fucking stupid videos, and he's going, oh, look, it's a storm, this means that, or this kind of thing. And it's like, then he's got a lot of them filming, and like he's going to knight me, Lord Chenton, this guy waving a fucking sword about. Just fucking stupid. And then he also had that crazy guy, that maybe that was later. No, I think that was later. No, it wasn't later. This guy from Norway, he was an oddball, and you could tell because he was on some of the videos, you just saw little glimpses of him, and you could tell he was like pissed up, and he was a nutter. I tell you, he's exactly like what happened. I don't know if he was working offshore or just in some kind of place where, like you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't get to speak to people very often. Those people often go mad. Right? I remember coming across them when I've been away, and they're always kind of like, they're socially weird because they've been away from people for a long time. They've been in the dank and getting paid lots of money, and then the next thing, they get out and there's like people around to talk to and stuff like that, they start going a bit crazy. But anyway, that was about that time. But at that point, Greg was really, really kind of just, he'd gone from having, it was like a pendulum, which didn't flip like a mercury tilt switch. It just slowly flicked from being largely credible with some bits which just needed a bit more explanation to largely incredible because he didn't mention any of the stuff that made sense anymore. That just went under the bus. He threw that under the bus and he just went through all crazy stuff.
So he was in Portugal, didn't really get anything achieved, and then he met up with you to go and see this John Ainsworth Davis, and that's when the whole Mountbatten Report book sort of went ahead from there on. So at what point did he just kind of cut ties with you?
I'll tell you when it was. Like, he came back to England and he said he was going to stay with Mark Windows, right? But Mark Windows, he has got like a 2-bedroom flat, but he's got one of these houses where he's got like the ground floor. He had the ground floor of like a normal house, terraced house in Walthamstow. And but the thing with that house is there's not like a kind of corridor with the rooms coming off them. You've got to go through one room to get to the other room to get to the other room. Yeah. So if you're in the room that's basically would have been the front room before they moved in it, but it's the front room still. Say Greg was sleeping in there, he'd have to go through the next room, which would have been where Mark was staying, for instance, and then he'd have to go into the next room, which would be the kitchen, and then the next room would be the toilet and the bathroom. So you kind of, that's not an ideal house. It's not like
living on top of each other.
So obviously Greg didn't want to be staying there. And at the same time, Mark, for whatever reason, was entertaining his nonsense. But then Mark got really, really pissed off with him because Mark was getting more nonsense from Greg than what I ever was subjected to. So Mark was also getting pissed off because every single person Mark introduced Greg to, he pissed off like every single one. It's getting to the point where it's just like a 100% hit rate. And so who knows what Mark's motivations were. But the thing was, Greg was just, he was basically, and he also, I noticed that Greg will always say he's doing work and he's doing research and that. Yeah, and fair enough, he does do that kind of stuff. But you see, you've got to remember a lot of the crazy stuff he was doing, it will just get more and more crazier. And also he spent a lot more time just smoking cigars and watching the Trailer Park Boys. He discovered the Trailer Park Boys and he was watching the Trailer Park Boys all the time. It's not a great program if you're doing absolutely nothing and then you're watching the Trailer Park Boys. Now, fair enough if you've been out and about doing this, doing that, doing all interesting stuff. Now, he does normally do interesting stuff, but he also spends a lot of time on the computer looking at things and finding out about things. He always gets out and about. But, you get to the point where, because he's more polite with people than I am. I mean, I am polite, sorry. He's more tolerant, sorry. So he lets them get to be a real problem before he tells them to fuck off. With Greg,
you mean Mark,
he would have pushed me that far. The only time he ever got to the point, where I was going to tell him to fuck off, I was going to say, to get out of my house. There's only one time I was on the cusp of doing it. Was the time, it wasn't the first time he'd met Mark, but Mark and this woman came round and they were doing something with some video. And because they were like recording something, I was making a cup of tea in the kitchen because I said, "Do you want a cup of tea or anything?" I was just leaving them to it. I was in a different place, part of the flat, And he sort of went a bit. The door slammed of the room, and what it was is, when the kettle makes a load of noise, sometimes the kettle makes a bit of noise. But you got to remember, this wasn't like next to his room. There was the front door. There's a little kind of square, and then there was the door into the room, the big room they were in, with the door shut. Then there was another door which was shut, which went into the kitchen. But you see, with Greg, everything has to be perfect, how it. He would have sort of heard a slight whistle noise. It wasn't a whistling kettle, but when it goes, when it gets to boiling,
Yeah.
And it got mad, and sort of slammed it, but then he slammed the door,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Right?
So
but the point is, he's doing it to just show what the fuck is he doing making noise? When he said, yeah, I like a cup of tea. Well, what I'm meant to do, stop the kettle making a noise. Do you know what I mean? Kettle's making noises. But you see, the reason he's doing that is because they're there and he has to show that he's the really big bananas.
Okay. So he was showing off, basically. I mean? Yeah, showing off. Yeah.
He's showing off, but you see, on that particular occasion, I didn't. But it was like one of these situations where you're on a knife edge, you're thinking, no, I should just tell him, listen, you go, fuck off. You've been, you've been here ages. You've been a cunt. Fuck off.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I thought, no, just leave him to it. It was very much like if somebody, when you kind of literally, it could have well gone the other way.
Yeah.
But that was the only time he really took the piss. What I'm trying to say is, he will really take the piss when he's got people around who he wants to kind of impress with his nonsense. But they weren't impressed. They thought he was an idiot. They just thought, well, they're just like, no, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's also very rude to women. He's often very, very rude to women as well. He kind of talks down to them. Well, that woman didn't like him at all.
Quite a few women have actually spoken to me that have spoken to Greg and said similar things, either derogatory or just downright rude and dismissive of them. But going back to Mark, so when he was with Mark, when he moved in or stayed with Mark, was that the sort of time where he basically stopped talking to you?
Yeah, I think it pretty much was, because I mean, he was saying some crazy thing. Someone was staying in that room at the time that he'd stayed in, and he said, "Oh no, they're an agent. They've been put there so that I can't stay there." And you're like, "Fuck off, Greg. Stop talking shit."
Yeah, that's just fantasy again. Yeah, okay. And then so there's no other reason. There's no other reason why he kind of stopped talking to you. He just kind of stopped because he couldn't move back into your house, and he'd been done. He'd got what he needed from you, and he didn't trust that you wouldn't show him up when he's talking bollocks. So he just kind of. It's a preemptive move. I think. Yeah. There possibly was some reason, but what it was is in one stage, he did a Jim Fletcher interview, and he started talking a lot of rubbish, and I picked him up on some of the things he'd said. Like he was saying that it was something to do with that summer that he'd been staying. A strange thing you did notice, there was a lot of people sitting about, because it was hot in the summer, yeah? There was a lot of people sitting around, drinking, smoking weed and stuff on like Holloway Road where I lived. And they were basically, obviously because it was summer, you get to that point where people don't even bother going in at night time because it's like they might as well just sit out because they've got nothing to do. Yeah.
And he sort of made some extraordinary claim like there were thousands of people, but I'm just talking, it was just a weird thing. These weren't your normal homeless layabouts.
Yeah.
Sorry, layabouts, down and outs. These were clearly people who were just, but you see, he makes some kind of extraordinary statement. And I said, well, that's just stupid. And but you see, then he says, well, you told me that, and I never told him that.
All right, again, putting words in your mouth or saying that you've told him something when
exactly,
said that, yeah.
And that's when he's saying I'm a counterintelligence weasel. London and Romania's #1 counterintelligence weasel, because at the time I was staying in Romania just for a couple of months. Yeah. But either way, so he comes out with these ridiculous things, and eventually it's preemptive. He's decided going to stay with Mark. He knows he can't stay in that place. And he also knows that I wouldn't let him stay in that place. He knows, even though I've told him, he knows that I'm not having him going, because it's just a drain on your finances. Look, he'll be there, I haven't got much money. But you see, the point is, if you're not working and he's staying around the place you're staying in, because work goes on and off for me. Sometimes there's no work, sometimes there is work. But you see, the point is, I'll work in another country or something. So with him, it's like you know what I mean? But he sees it. He doesn't give a shit about any of that stuff. It's like, oh well. Give an example. Hummus, right? Around the area, you get lots of Turks and Arabs, right?
Yeah.
So you can get this like ice cream type tubs of hummus, right? And if it's cheap or something, I'd buy it. He will literally just get a spoon and start eating the hummus, right? So he'd eat like 2 kilos of hummus. Do you know what I mean? So you're thinking you're getting an economy because you're getting it for maybe like £5 for like a kilo or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is, by the end of the day, he could have eaten. He could have eaten that if he bought Sainsbury's. That cost him 50 quid.
Yeah. Blimey.
Maybe 50. You see what I'm trying to say? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I would never buy stuff like that from Sainsbury's or Waitrose, but it was always the same. Or say, for instance, if he's vegetarian. Let's say you cook like up a big stew. You got rice or stuff like that to go with it. He will literally call it soup. Yeah. Now then, he knows it's not soup and there's rice cooking. So by the time that rice is cooked, he's eaten half the pot of the stuff that would go with the rice. Do you see what I mean?
Oh my God. Yeah.
He's eating himself full, and then he's like, oh, right, I thought it was soup. And fuck you, you know it wasn't soup. You've just literally eaten all the stuff, so then half that rice, you're going to have to throw it out or make more stew. And then he's going to start eating that. And then, you see what I'm trying to say? He's always, and a part of him, that's not because he even wants it. He is very greedy. He is greedy, yeah. But at the same time, he is sort of saying, I'm too important to worry about rules. Or I'm too important to etiquette. I'm not talking about rules. I'm not one of these people who goes around making loads of rules.
Yeah.
But he's pushing, boundary pushing, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Sure.
And that's why he pisses people off. Yeah. And again, the way he talks to women is just, it's not always all the time, but he's got this kind of really misogynistic, weird way about him. So most of them just think he's just a nutter. But at the same time, it's put it this way, if he's making out he's fighting a good fight, yeah, and then you say, well, there's no, like he was saying, he always said to me, look, when my daughter turned 16, she came straight to live with me straight away. But then it turned out that from what his sister said or his mum said, no, that was always part of the arrangement. She would go and live with him when she was 16 or whatever. That was the actual agreement that had been agreed with the court, because it was thought she'd be better off with the mum or whatever, and then she'd be better off, but there's nothing really wrong with him, but it would be easier if she was predominant with the mum, and then when she was 16, she would go to live with him. That was basically the agreement. They all knew this. The daughter knew this, the mother knew this, he knew this, but then he plays fast and loose with the truth. I don't know if this is the case, but this is what it probably sounds like. So then she's packed the bags and gone and moved with him. But you see what I'm trying to say? So it's not, what he's saying often isn't actually true. He'll just make up lies about things.
Oh, he was basically making out that that she'd made a spur of the moment decision to move out from her mum because of whatever reason, to go and live with him.
That she turned 16.
Yeah.
But no, that had been the plan for probably 5 or 6 years.
Got ya.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, it's not because the mother was some dragon who was just using this as a weapon against him.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit too remote for his mother or his sister to make this story up. It's not like a sort of slam dunk. It's just an incidental thing.
Yeah.
But you see, he makes out one thing, but it's not the way what you see.
I've spoken to his family, and they've also told me that it went to court and whatnot, and that it was agreed that she would go and live there for a year. I think it was. Anyway, moving on from that, I just wanted to go back to the Mark Windows bit, because you said he stayed there for a while. Was Mark the guy that you said that Greg kept his books in his garage?
No, it's a friend of Mark's.
Oh, okay, a friend of Mark's. So which books were those? Were they the Mountbatten, or was it the Hidden King, or?
Because when I was talking to you last time, I was thinking, which ones was it? I think it was the Mountbatten report one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, in a previous conversation with you told me, well, you kind of alluded to that it was the Mountbatten one.
I'm not sure. Listen, don't quote me, but I think it was that one, yeah.
So, just tell me what you told me about what happened to those books.
Well, they hanged about in the garage. Greg had his 60 grand to fucking piss up the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he didn't do any of the things he said he would. And then the next thing, he said, what are you going to do with these books? What are you going to do with these books? What are you going to do with these books? They ended up just getting rid of them. They just pulped them.
They pulped them? They had them for quite a while, didn't they, before they did that?
Yeah, they had them for months and months and months, and they were just like, rotting in someone's garage.
Obviously he wasn't selling many of them then.
No, he wasn't selling them, or hardly any, yeah?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where they were just taking up space. People, it's a bit like if I say, can I store this stuff in the garage? Like, yeah, and they should store it. because you think it's like a product that's going to go.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go because he's not pushing it. He's not doing anything. He's moved on to something else.
Yeah.
He's got money in his pocket, so he just doesn't give a fuck about anything anymore.
Yeah.
And he could have easily sold all those books. I'm pretty sure he could have done. But again, this is how he works. It's like onwards and upwards.
Yeah.
You know?
When he's got the money, he kind of takes the foot off the pedal and spends all the money, whilst whatever he was working on is kind of rotting for a bit until then he needs the next lot. Right?
Yeah, but then what he did was he went to stay with various people Mark introduced him to.
Okay.
And I think at one stage he was staying in one of their back gardens. They had like a land, in a caravan and stuff like this. But then he was progressively latching on to more and more fucked up weirdos because he knows they're a lot more tolerant to bullshit. And if he just massages their egos, which is very easy with weirdos, they'll let you stay with them. You won't have to pay for anything, and you'll be able to do that for a few months, and then you'll be able to do this for a few months, and then all of a sudden he's not talking to Mark. So he doesn't burn his bridges, then move. He knows he can't keep doing what he's doing, so he'll move, and then he'll start resenting. You know, these narcissistic type people, they resent the people who they've had to move away from.
Yeah.
So in their head, they'll think that person's wronged them.
Yeah.
But that person hasn't wronged them. They just push it, twist everything round, say that or imagine that person's wronged them, because otherwise they wouldn't be in the situation they put themselves in. They'll be in a twat all the time.
Well, Tom, I think I've asked everything I want to ask, and we've got a lot of information from this interview. If you do think of anything else, obviously contact me, and we'll perhaps have another chat. But I want to thank you for your time.
What I would imagine will is, because as I said, this is not something that's familiar with me anymore completely.
Yeah.
And I have no intention of looking back and spending a few hours or a few days looking over all the stuff. There's just literally no point, because if I did that, that would actually be misleading, because it would be giving people the impression that it's a really important subject, which I really had to cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
Yeah.
Which it's not. This should be dismissed out of hand.
Yeah, it's not worth your time. You know him from before all these ridiculous. Well, you know him during these claims, but some of what he's come out with since is actually interesting to talk to you from a point of that you haven't really heard anything since, and you're telling me about the Greg that you knew, not the Greg that you've researched afterwards. So that's really important perspective to get on his character.
The thing is that if anybody does listen to this who's actually been cramming up on everything about him recently, and they've watched all the stuff that he's put out and everything, it's better for them if they have questions and then you want to ask me about those specific points, going back that they picked up and they, because it's fresh in their mind. Yeah, it would probably jog memory and I'd have more comments, but I don't mind doing that. It's no problem.
Thank you very much, Tom. So, Tom Cahill, it's been very interesting to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time and for chatting to me. Obviously, Tom's got his own YouTube channel, so go and check it out. I'll drop it in the comments below.
It's TZMCAHILL. It's a 0, not an O in Tom. You can find me there on Skype, on Hotmail, and on YouTube and other accounts.
That's right, yep.
Also Twitter.
Watch his content, it's very interesting, and obviously watch his video called Greg Hallett, an Overview, and that's where I heard of Tom, and it's a very interesting video. It made me chuckle to watch, just because you were finding it so amusing to talk about him. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing this, and I hope to speak to you again, Tom.
Okay.
All right.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you.